San Francisco, California. 6:47 a.m. The alarm clock screamed like a banshee, but Ellery Matthews was already awake, staring at the ceiling of her tiny studio apartment. Today was the day. The day she'd either save her father's struggling bookstore or watch it crumble into bankruptcy. No pressure at all. She rolled out of bed and immediately tripped over a stack of marketing proposals, sending papers flying like confetti at a funeral. Perfect start to a perfect day, she muttered, gathering the scattered documents that represented 3 sleepless nights of work. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Sarah. Remember, you're a marketing genius, not a walking disaster. Try not to spill anything on yourself today. Love you. Ellery snorted. Sarah knew her too well. In college, she'd once managed to spill an entire smoothie on herself during a presentation about spill-proof containers. The irony wasn't lost on her professors. She grabbed her lucky coffee mug, a chipped ceramic disaster that read, "World's okayest daughter," and headed for the door. Today, she'd pitch her revolutionary marketing campaign to 3 potential investors. If even one said yes, her father wouldn't have to sell the bookstore that had been in their family for 40 years. What could possibly go wrong? Tell me where in the world you're listening to this story from, and at the end, comment on what you thought of the story, or leave a suggestion for improvement. I'd love to hear your feedback. Downtown San Francisco, Starbucks on Market Street, 8:15 a.m. Edgar Chen was having what he liked to call a controlled creative breakdown. His architectural blueprints were spread across 3 tables. Coffee cups created a fortress around his workspace, and he was talking to himself in what sounded like a mixture of English and architectural gibberish. "No, no, no," he groaned, erasing a line for the 15th time. "You can't put a bathroom next to the kitchen, Edgar. People don't want to hear toilet flushes while they're eating their morning cereal." The elderly woman at the next table gave him a concerned look and subtly moved her purse closer to her body. That's when Hurricane Ellery burst through the door. She was stunning in that chaotic, "I just ran through a tornado" way. Her blonde hair looked like she'd been electrocuted, her blazer was buttoned wrong, and she was juggling a coffee cup, a briefcase, and what appeared to be a small avalanche of papers. "Excuse me, pardon me, so sorry," she called out, weaving through the morning crowd like a caffeinated pinball. Edgar watched in fascination as she approached the counter, her briefcase swinging dangerously close to other customers. It was like watching a beautiful disaster in slow motion. 1 large coffee, black, with an extra shot of "Please don't let me ruin my life today," she told the barista, who looked confused. We don't have that flavor," the teenager replied. "Then make it a double espresso with a side of liquid courage," Ellery said, checking her watch. "I have exactly 23 minutes to save my family's business, and I'm pretty sure I'm about to throw up." The barista's eyes widened. "Are you okay, ma'am?" "Define okay," Ellery laughed, but it sounded more like a hyena having an existential crisis. Edgar couldn't help himself. He abandoned his blueprints and walked over. "Excuse me, but did you just order liquid courage? Because if that's on the menu, I'll take a gallon." Ellery turned around, and Edgar felt like he'd been hit by a truck driven by Cupid. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, and even in her disheveled state, she was absolutely gorgeous. "Are you making fun of me?" she asked, narrowing those incredible eyes. "Actually, I'm relating to you. I've been talking to myself about bathroom placement for the past hour, so we're both having public breakdowns." Despite herself, Ellery smiled. "Bathroom placement? I'm an architect. It's more dramatic than it sounds." Edgar extended his hand. "Edgar Chen, professional overthinker and coffee addict. Ellery Matthews, professional disaster and—" She gestured vaguely at her appearance. "This." Just then, the barista called out, "Double espresso for the lady who's about to throw up!" Every head in the coffee shop turned toward them. Ellery's face went tomato red. "I cannot believe he just announced that to everyone," she whispered. Edgar burst out laughing. "Well, at least now everyone knows you're having an authentic human experience." "Oh God, what if my potential investors are in here?" Ellery spun around, scanning the crowd. Then they'll know you're honest about your nervous system, Edgar said, grabbing her coffee from the counter. Come on, let's get you away from your public announcement. He guided her to his table, where his architectural chaos was still spread out. Welcome to my office. Sorry about the mess. Your mess is organized compared to my life right now, Ellery said, sitting down and immediately knocking over one of his coffee cups with her elbow. Oh no! She shrieked, jumping up as coffee spread across his blueprints. I'm so sorry. I just destroyed your work. Edgar looked at the coffee-stained papers and started laughing. Not polite chuckling, full-blown tears in his eyes laughter. Are you having a nervous breakdown? Ellery asked, panic in her voice. No, I'm having a revelation. Edgar wiped his eyes. I've been staring at these plans for 3 days, and I just realized, thanks to your coffee spill, that I put the kitchen on the wrong side of the building. So, I accidentally helped you? You accidentally saved me from presenting a disaster to my client this afternoon. Ellery blinked. Are you serious? Dead serious. You're like a beautiful, chaotic guardian angel. Did you just call me beautiful? Ellery felt her cheeks warming. Edgar realized what he'd said and turned slightly red. You are, even covered in coffee and having a public breakdown. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then Ellery's phone alarm went off, playing Eye of the Tiger at maximum volume. Oh my God, my meeting! She jumped up, gathering her papers. I have to go save my father's bookstore. Wait, Edgar called after her. Your name is Ellery, right? Can I see you again? She paused at the door, looking back at this strange, wonderful man who'd made her laugh during the worst morning of her life. If I don't completely humiliate myself in this meeting, come by Matthew's Books on Castro Street tomorrow at 7. If you see a going out of business sign, keep walking. And with that, she was gone, leaving Edgar sitting in his coffee-stained workspace with a grin that could power the entire city. What neither of them knew was that in exactly 18 hours, Ellery would receive news that would change everything, and Edgar would become the most important person in her rapidly unraveling world. Matthew's Books, Castro Street, 6:30 p.m. Ellery practically floated through the door of her father's bookstore, clutching a signed contract like it was the Holy Grail. The meeting had gone better than her wildest dreams. Not only had she secured the investor, but they'd offered double her asking price. Dad! She called out, doing a little victory dance between the romance and mystery sections. We're saved! The bookstore is saved! Robert Matthews emerged from behind the counter, his gray hair disheveled and his usually cheerful face looking like he'd aged 10 years in one day. In his hands was an official-looking document that made Ellery's celebration freeze mid-dance. Sweetheart, he said quietly, we need to talk. Oh no, that's never good news. Ellery's stomach dropped. What's wrong? Did Mrs. Henderson complain about the poetry readings again? Because I can move them to... We're being evicted. The words hit her like a physical blow. What? Robert held up the notice. 30 days. The landlord sold the building to developers. They're tearing it down to build luxury condos. Ellery stared at the paper, her brain refusing to process the information. But I just got us the money. I literally just saved us. I know, honey. I know. Robert's voice cracked. I've been trying to reach Mr. Kowalski all day, but his lawyer says it's final. The new owners want us out by August 15th. August 15th? Dad, that's exactly 30 days from today. Ellery's voice pitched higher. Where are we supposed to go? This bookstore has been in our family for 40 years. I don't know, sweetheart. I just don't know. Ellery looked around at the cozy space that had been her second home since childhood. The mismatched armchairs where customers spent hours reading, the handwritten staff recommendations, the children's corner with its rainbow carpet. It was all going to be demolished for overpriced apartments. This is insane, she exploded. There has to be something we can do. We can fight this. With what money? Legal fees would bankrupt us even faster. Ellery sank into the nearest chair, her signed contract suddenly feeling worthless. I can't believe this is happening. This morning I was worried about one presentation, and now our entire family legacy is being destroyed. Hey, Robert sat down across from her. Remember what your mother used to say? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade, I know. But Dad, what if life gives you a wrecking ball? Robert managed a small smile. Then you duck really fast and figure out plan B. What's plan B? I have no idea. They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by thousands of books that had brought joy to countless readers. The weight of losing it all felt unbearable. I should go home, Ellery said finally. I need to think. Maybe there's something we're missing. Don't stay up all night brainstorming, honey. You've done enough for one day. Ellery hugged her father tightly. We'll figure this out, Dad. I promise. Ellery's apartment, 11:47 p.m. Ellery had been pacing her studio apartment for 3 hours, wearing a groove in the hardwood floor. Empty coffee cups littered every surface, and her laptop was surrounded by crumpled papers with failed ideas. Crowdfunding? No, not enough time. Protest the city council? Too slow. Chain myself to the building? Probably illegal, she muttered, adding another paper to the rejection pile. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. How did the meeting go? Are you celebrating or crying? Ellery typed back. Both. Got the investor, but we're being evicted. FML. Sarah's response was immediate. What? I'm coming over. No, it's midnight. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're probably pacing and drinking dangerous amounts of caffeine. Ellery looked at her 7th cup of coffee and grimaced. Sarah knew her too well. Maybe a little. Go to bed. We'll figure this out tomorrow. Can't sleep. Brain won't shut off. Then go for a walk. Fresh air might help. Ellery considered this. Her apartment felt like a pressure cooker, and she was definitely going stir-crazy. Fine. A quick walk around the block. She grabbed her jacket and headed out into the San Francisco night. Market Street, 12:15 a.m. The city was quieter at midnight, but still alive with the energy that made San Francisco special. Ellery walked aimlessly, her mind churning through increasingly desperate scenarios. She found herself standing outside the same Starbucks where she'd met Edgar that morning. It felt like a lifetime ago. The memory of his laugh when she'd spilled coffee on his blueprints made her smile despite everything. Edgar, she said aloud, remembering his invitation to visit the bookstore tomorrow. Great. Now I have to tell a perfectly nice guy that the bookstore he wanted to visit is being demolished. Talking to yourself is the first sign of genius, a familiar voice said behind her. Ellery spun around to find Edgar walking toward her, carrying a takeout bag and wearing a concerned expression. Edgar, what are you doing here? Late dinner from the Thai place next door. What are you doing here? It's past midnight. Having a mild breakdown. You know, the usual. Edgar studied her face in the streetlight. This is about more than your meeting today, isn't it? How can you tell? Because you look like someone just told you Santa Claus isn't real, and also he's been evicted from the North Pole. Despite everything, Ellery laughed. That's actually a pretty accurate comparison. Want to talk about it? I'm a good listener, and I have pad thai to share. Ellery looked at this man who'd been a stranger 12 hours ago, but somehow felt like exactly what she needed right now. You don't want to hear about my family drama. Try me. So she told him everything. About the bookstore, the eviction notice, the 40-year family legacy about to be destroyed. Edgar listened without interrupting, occasionally offering her bites of pad thai. 30 days, he said finally. That's brutal. I know, I feel so helpless. This morning I thought I was saving everything, and now you're dealing with something completely different. That's not your fault. Tell that to my dad. He's trying to be strong, but I can see how much this is killing him. Edgar was quiet for a moment, then said, What if I told you I might have an idea? What kind of idea? The kind that's probably crazy but might just work. Ellery turned to face him fully, I'm listening. What if instead of trying to save the bookstore where it is, we help it find a new home? Edgar, we don't have money for a new lease, and good locations take months to find. But what if we didn't need a traditional location? What if we could create a temporary mobile bookstore that keeps the business alive while you search for something permanent? Ellery stared at him. Are you talking about a food truck? But for books? I'm talking about a book truck. Think about it. San Francisco has farmers markets, street fairs, festivals. You could take the bookstore to the people while you figure out the next step. Ellery paused, her mind racing. That's actually not completely insane. I know someone who customizes vehicles. We could probably get something set up in a couple weeks. Wait, we? Edgar realized what he'd said and smiled sheepishly. I mean, if you want help. I know we just met, but I'm between projects right now, and I like impossible challenges. Why would you do that for someone you barely know? Because, Edgar said simply, this morning you accidentally saved my career. Maybe it's time I returned the favor. Ellery felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe, or something even more dangerous. You're serious about this? Dead serious. Your family shouldn't lose something that important because of some greedy developers. Edgar Chen, Ellery said, stepping closer to him. You might just be the most wonderful person I've ever met. Does that mean you'll let me help? It means, Ellery said, feeling truly hopeful for the first time all day, that we have a bookstore to save. Danny's Custom Vehicles, South Bay, 10 a.m. You want me to turn a food truck into a what now? Danny Rodriguez stared at Edgar and Ellery like they'd asked him to build a rocket ship. A mobile bookstore, Ellery repeated, trying to sound more confident than she felt. You know, like a library on wheels, but people can actually buy the books. Danny scratched his beard and walked around the beat-up food truck they'd found on Craigslist. I've done taco trucks, ice cream trucks, even a mobile pet grooming service, but books? That's a new one. Can you do it? Edgar asked, pulling out his architectural sketches from the previous night. I've got some ideas for the layout. Danny studied the drawings. You want built-in bookshelves, a reading nook, cash register area, and... He squinted at the paper. Is that a coffee machine? People love browsing books with coffee, Ellery explained. It's essential for the full bookstore experience. And you want this done in 2 weeks? Preferably less, Ellery said. We're kind of on a tight deadline. Danny named his price, and Ellery's face went pale. That's our entire investor budget, plus my savings, Edgar added quietly. Your savings. Ellery turned to him. Edgar, you can't spend your own money on this. Watch me. But what if it doesn't work? What if we can't make enough to pay you back? Edgar shrugged. Then I'll own a really cool book truck. Win-win. Danny looked between them with growing amusement. You two married? No, they both said simultaneously, then glanced at each other awkwardly. Right, Danny grinned. Just business partners who finish each other's sentences and make life-changing financial decisions together after knowing each other for 24 hours. It's not like that, Ellery protested. Sure it's not. I'll have your book truck ready in 10 days. Payment up front. As they shook hands, Ellery whispered to Edgar, I can't believe you're doing this. I can't believe you're letting me, he whispered back. Matthews Books, 2 p.m. A book truck? Robert Matthews stared at the sketches spread across the counter. Are you two out of your minds? Probably, Ellery admitted. But it's the only plan we have. Dad, think about it, she continued, warming to the idea. We take the bookstore to street festivals, farmers markets, outside concerts. We reach people who might never have found us otherwise. And when winter comes, when it rains, when the city decides mobile vendors need different permits? Edgar stepped forward. Mr. Matthews, I know this sounds crazy, but your daughter is one of the most determined people I've ever met. If anyone can make this work, it's her. Robert looked at Edgar suspiciously. And what's your stake in this, young man? What do you get out of helping us? Edgar glanced at Ellery, who was suddenly very interested in organizing a display of romance novels. I get to help save something important, and I get to work with someone who makes me want to be better than I am. Dad, Ellery said softly, we don't have any other options. Robert sighed heavily. Your mother would have loved this insane plan. Really? She always said the best adventures start with terrible ideas and blind faith. He looked at the sketches again. What do you need me to do? Help us figure out which books to prioritize for the truck. We can't fit everything. And, Edgar added, we need to plan the grand opening. I'm thinking we launch at the Castro Street Fair next weekend. Next weekend? Ellery's eyes widened. That's in 6 days. Danny said 10 days for the truck. That gives us 4 days to stock it and practice. Practice? You didn't think running a mobile bookstore would be easy, did you? Edgar's apartment. 6 p.m. Edgar's living room had been transformed into mission control for Operation Book Truck. His coffee table was covered with permits, vendor applications, and market schedules. His laptop displayed a complex spreadsheet that would have made NASA jealous. Okay, he said, pacing in front of a whiteboard covered in his increasingly manic handwriting. We need a business license, a mobile vendor permit, health department approval for the coffee service, and insurance for the truck. Ellery looked up from her own laptop, where she was researching book distributors. How is there this much paperwork for selling books? Because this is San Francisco, where you need a permit to breathe. I just realized something terrible, Ellery said, her face going pale. What? I don't know how to drive a truck. Edgar stopped pacing. What? I've lived in the city my whole life. I take the bus. I've never driven anything bigger than a Honda Civic. Okay, that's a problem. Can you drive a truck? I can drive a regular car. I have no idea about trucks. They stared at each other in growing panic. We need a driver, Ellery said. We need a driver, Edgar agreed. Who do we know who can drive a truck? I don't know anyone who can drive a truck. Do you know anyone who can drive a truck? No. Oh God, what if we get the truck finished and then we can't actually move it anywhere? Edgar grabbed his phone. Danny, it's Edgar. Quick question. Do you know anyone who can drive a food truck? Ellery could hear Danny's laughter through the phone. He's laughing at us, she whispered. He says his nephew Miguel drives for 3 different food trucks and might be available part-time. Thank God, Ellery collapsed dramatically on Edgar's couch. Crisis averted. Also, he says we should practice with the coffee machine before we open, because apparently people get very angry when their caffeine is delayed. Of course they do. This is San Francisco. Edgar sat down beside her, and she was suddenly very aware of how close they were. You know, he said softly, most people would have given up by now. Most people didn't grow up in a bookstore, Ellery replied. Books taught me that every impossible situation has a solution. You just have to be creative enough to find it. And what did books teach you about working with someone you barely know? Ellery turned to face him, her heart doing something complicated in her chest. That sometimes the best partnerships start with the most unlikely circumstances. Like spilling coffee on architectural plans. Like spilling coffee on architectural plans. They were sitting closer now, and Edgar's hand was somehow covering hers. Ellery, I need to tell you something. What? I haven't felt this excited about anything in years. This project. Working with you. It's like you've woken something up in me. Edgar, I know we just met, and I know this is probably terrible timing, but I think I'm falling for you. Ellery's breath caught. You are. Completely, ridiculously, probably inappropriately given that we're business partners now. Edgar Chen, Ellery said, moving even closer, you have terrible timing. I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Because, she interrupted, I was just thinking the same thing. The kiss was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as they both realized this was exactly what they'd been wanting since the moment they met. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This complicates things," Ellery whispered. "Everything about this situation is complicated," Edgar replied, stroking her hair. "What's one more complication?" "We should probably focus on saving the bookstore first, then figure out us." "Agreed. Business first, feelings second." "Right. Professional boundaries." "Absolutely." They were still sitting incredibly close, and Edgar's thumb was tracing patterns on her hand. "Edgar?" "Yeah?" "This professional boundary thing is going to be impossible, isn't it?" "Completely impossible." "Good. I was hoping you'd say that." Danny's shop, 8:00 p.m. They'd driven to check on the truck's progress, and Danny was working late, installing custom shelving that Edgar had designed. "Looking good," Edgar called out, admiring the built-in bookcases. "Your boyfriend's got good ideas," Danny told Ellery. "He's not my boyfriend," Ellery said automatically, then caught Edgar's amused look. "I mean, we're business partners." "Right," Danny winked, "and I'm the Pope." "How's the coffee machine installation going?" Edgar asked, changing the subject. "That's the fun part. You'll need to practice with it because it's got more buttons than a spaceship. One wrong move and you'll either have no coffee or you'll flood the entire truck." "Great," Ellery muttered. "Another thing to worry about." "Hey," Edgar squeezed her hand. "We've got this. What's the worst that could happen?" Danny looked up from his work. "You don't want me to answer that question." "No," Ellery said quickly. "We really don't." But as she watched Edgar examining the coffee machine with the same intense focus he'd brought to everything else about this project, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Complete faith that everything was going to work out exactly as it should. Even if it killed them both first. Castro Street Fair, 7:00 a.m. "Miguel, please tell me you didn't just say what I think you said." Ellery's voice reached a pitch that could shatter glass. Miguel Rodriguez, Danny's nephew and their supposedly reliable driver, was standing next to their beautiful, fully stocked book truck with a sheepish expression and his arm in a bright blue cast. "I broke my wrist last night playing soccer," Miguel explained. "I can't drive stick shift with one hand." Edgar stared at the truck, then at Miguel, then at the rapidly filling street fair around them. "The truck is stick shift?" "All food trucks are stick shift, man. Better control." "Why didn't anyone mention this crucial detail earlier?" Ellery demanded. "I thought you knew," Miguel protested. "Who buys a truck without knowing how to drive it?" "Apparently us," Edgar muttered. Ellery looked around at the Castro Street Fair setup happening around them. Vendors were arriving, tents were going up, and in 3 hours thousands of people would be expecting to buy books from their truck. Their immobile, perfectly useless truck. "Okay," she said, taking a deep breath. "We're not panicking. We're problem solving." "I'm definitely panicking a little," Edgar admitted. "Can you learn to drive stick shift in 3 hours?" she asked Miguel. "With a broken wrist? Not unless you want me to crash into a hot dog cart." "Fair point." Ellery pulled out her phone. "Sarah, emergency. Do you know anyone who can drive a stick shift truck? Right now, for money." Edgar could hear Sarah's response. "What did you two do now?" "We accidentally bought a truck we can't drive and we're supposed to open in 3 hours." "I'll make some calls." While Ellery worked her phone, Edgar approached the truck like it was a wild animal. "How hard can it be, right? It's just extra pedals." "Don't even think about it," Miguel warned. "My uncle will kill me if you destroy his work." "Your uncle will kill us all if we can't make this business successful," Edgar replied, but he stepped away from the truck. 9:30 a.m. 30 minutes before opening. "Good news and bad news," Sarah announced, jogging up to them with a cup of coffee and a frazzled expression. "Bad news first," Ellery said. "I found 3 people who can drive stick shift. 2 are out of town, and 1 is my ex-boyfriend who I'd rather not call unless someone is literally dying. And the good news? My cousin Jake is coming, but he won't be here for 2 hours. The fair started 30 minutes ago." Edgar pointed to the growing crowd of people already wandering between vendor booths. I know, I'm sorry. Jake had to drop his kids off at soccer practice first. Ellery sat down on the curb and put her head in her hands. This is a disaster. We spent everything we had on this truck and we can't even open it. Wait, Edgar said suddenly. Sarah, how long ago did you and your ex break up? 6 months. Why? Was it a terrible breakup? He cheated on me with his yoga instructor. So yes, pretty terrible. Perfect, Edgar grinned. Call him. Are you insane? Sarah stared at Edgar like he'd suggested she set herself on fire. Think about it, Edgar continued. You get to call your cheating ex-boyfriend and ask him to spend his Saturday doing manual labor to help you. He'll feel guilty enough to say yes, and you get the satisfaction of making him drive a truck around all day. Ellery looked up from her hands. That's actually brilliant. That's actually evil, Sarah said. I love it. She dialed her phone. Tyler, it's Sarah. I need a favor. 10:15 a.m. The grand opening. Tyler turned out to be exactly what Ellery had expected from Sarah's ex. Overly enthusiastic, slightly desperate to make amends, and surprisingly good at driving the book truck. Okay, everyone, Tyler called out from the driver's seat. Where to first? Just park us in our designated spot, Ellery said, checking her appearance in the truck's side mirror. And Tyler, thank you for this. Anything for Sarah, he said, glancing hopefully at his ex-girlfriend. Don't get any ideas, Sarah replied coolly. This is a one-time favor. Edgar was inside the truck, frantically arranging books and trying to figure out the coffee machine. Ellery, how do I make this thing work? Press the blue button, she called back. Which blue button? There are 6 blue buttons. The biggest one. Edgar pressed what he thought was the biggest blue button. The coffee machine began making a sound like a dying whale, and steam started pouring out of 3 different vents. That's not right! Ellery climbed into the truck just as their first customer approached. Excuse me, a friendly-looking woman said. Do you have any romance novels? Yes, Ellery called out, while Edgar battled the coffee machine behind her. What kind are you looking for? Something light and funny. And could I get a latte? Edgar looked at the coffee machine, which was now making an ominous grinding noise. How do you feel about black coffee? The machine's broken? The woman asked. The machine's complicated, Ellery corrected diplomatically, shooting Edgar a look. I'll take black coffee and... The woman browsed the romance section. This one. She handed over a book. As Ellery rang up the sale on their tablet payment system, Edgar managed to produce a cup of coffee that was only slightly burnt-smelling. Congratulations, the woman said. You're my first book truck purchase ever. As she walked away, Edgar and Ellery looked at each other with a mixture of relief and terror. One down, Ellery said. Several thousand to go, Edgar replied. 2 p.m. The rush. By afternoon, word had spread about the book truck, and they had a line 15 people deep. Edgar had finally conquered the coffee machine, mostly, and Ellery was in her element, recommending books and chatting with customers. This is amazing, she told Edgar during a brief lull. Look at all these people. You're amazing, Edgar replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. I've never seen anyone connect with customers like you do. It's what my dad taught me. Every book has the right reader. You just have to match them up. Excuse me. A man in an expensive suit approached the truck. Are you the owners? That's us, Ellery said cheerfully. What can we help you find? I'm Brad Cunningham from Cunningham Development. We're the company that bought your original building. Ellery's smile froze. Oh, I wanted to see what all the fuss was about. This is quite the operation you've built here. Thank you, Edgar said carefully, sensing tension. I'm actually here to make you an offer, Brad continued. We're planning a mixed-use development with retail space on the ground floor. We'd love to have you as an anchor tenant. Ellery blinked. You want us to move back into the building you're tearing down? The new building, modern, efficient, 3 times the foot traffic. You'd be perfect for our target demographic. And the rent? Edgar asked. Brad named a figure that made both Ellery and Edgar's jaws drop. That's 5 times what we were paying before, Ellery said. Market rate for the area. But think of the exposure, the prestige. We can't afford that, Ellery said flatly. Well, that's too bad. I was hoping we could work something out. Brad's friendly demeanor shifted slightly. By the way, you do have all the proper permits for this operation, don't you? A chill ran down Ellery's spine. Of course we do. Mobile vendor permit, health department approval for food service, insurance that covers book sales from a vehicle. Edgar felt his stomach drop. In all their rushing around, they'd gotten the basic permits, but hadn't thought about book-specific insurance. I'm sure everything is in order, Ellery said, her voice steady despite her growing panic. I hope so. The city is very strict about permit violations. Hefty fines, immediate closure orders. Would be a shame if something went wrong. Brad smiled coldly. Enjoy your day. As he walked away, Ellery and Edgar stared at each other. Please tell me we have book-specific insurance, Ellery whispered. I thought you handled the insurance, Edgar whispered back. I thought you handled the insurance. Oh no, they said in unison. Just then, Tyler appeared at the window. Hey guys, we might have a problem. There's a city inspector walking around checking permits, and he's headed this way. Ellery looked at the line of customers still waiting to buy books, then at Edgar, then at the approaching inspector. This is it, she said. This is how it ends. Not with bankruptcy or bad sales, but because we forgot to get the right insurance. Hey, Edgar took her hand. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. Together. Mr. Matthews is going to kill me. No, wait, he's going to kill us both. If we're going down, Edgar said, squeezing her hand. At least we're going down together. The inspector was getting closer. You know what? Ellery said suddenly. I'm not giving up. Brad Cunningham wants to shut us down. Fine, but we're not going down without a fight. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Ellery said, grabbing the truck's microphone, that if we're about to get shut down anyway, we might as well go out with style. She flipped on the truck's speakers and announced to the entire fair, Ladies and gentlemen, this might be your last chance to buy books from the Castro Street book truck. We're having an emergency everything must go sale. 50% off all books right now. The crowd surged toward them like a tsunami. Edgar stared at her in admiration and terror. You're completely insane. I know, Ellery grinned, already ringing up sales as fast as she could. Isn't it great? Castro Street Fair, 3:47 p.m. The emergency sale was chaos in the best possible way. Books were flying off the shelves faster than Edgar could restock them, and Ellery was operating the cash register like a woman possessed. The line stretched around 3 other vendor booths. I need 2 romance novels and a mystery, shouted a customer. Coming right up, Ellery called back, grabbing books with one hand while processing payments with the other. The city inspector was now only 20 feet away, methodically checking permits at each booth. Edgar watched him shut down a kettle corn vendor who apparently didn't have proper fire safety documentation. Ellery, Edgar said quietly. He's getting closer. I know. Just keep selling books. If we're going down, we're taking half the fair's inventory with us. Ma'am? The inspector's voice carried over the crowd. He was now at the booth directly next to them. Can I see your permits, please? Edgar's palms started sweating. This is it. Wait, Sarah appeared at the truck window, slightly out of breath. Ellery, I just talked to my friend Monica at the city office. She says book sales from vehicles fall under retail permits, not food service permits. What does that mean? Ellery asked, still ringing up sales. It means you don't need book-specific insurance. Regular business insurance covers it. Edgar felt like he might faint with relief. Are you sure? Monica's been doing permits for 12 years. She's sure. The inspector approached their truck. Afternoon, folks. Mind if I see your documentation? Of course, Ellery said, suddenly confident again. Edgar, grab the permit folder. Edgar handed over their paperwork with slightly shaky hands. The inspector reviewed everything methodically while their customers waited impatiently. Mobile vendor permit, check. Business license, check. General liability insurance, check. The inspector looked up. Everything appears to be in order. Thank you, Ellery said, trying not to sound too relieved. Though I should mention, the inspector continued, someone called in a complaint about this operation. Said you might not have proper documentation. Edgar and Ellery exchanged looks. Someone called in a complaint? Gentleman in a suit. Said he was concerned about public safety. The inspector shrugged. Happens sometimes. Competitors get jealous. Brad Cunningham, Ellery muttered under her breath. Well, you're all legal. Have a good day. The inspector moved on. As soon as he was out of earshot, Edgar grabbed Ellery and spun her around. We did it! We're legal! We're legal! She laughed, kissing him impulsively before remembering they were in public. Excuse me, a customer called out. Are you still doing the 50% off sale? Absolutely, Ellery called back, still glowing from their narrow escape. 6 p.m. End of fair. They'd sold more books in one day than the physical store typically sold in a week. The truck was nearly empty. Their cash box was full, and Edgar was pretty sure he'd never been happier in his life. I can't believe we pulled that off, he said, collapsing into one of the truck's built-in reading chairs. I can't believe Brad Cunningham tried to shut us down, Ellery replied, counting their earnings. What kind of person calls in false complaints? The kind who's used to getting his way and doesn't like being told no. Tyler appeared in the truck doorway. Hey guys, I'm heading out. Sarah's giving me a ride home. Tyler, thank you so much, Ellery said. You literally saved our business today. Just happy I could help. And hey, Sarah actually smiled at me twice today. That's progress, right? Don't push it, Sarah warned, but she was trying not to smile. After they left, Edgar and Ellery sat in comfortable silence, surrounded by the remnants of their successful day. Edgar, Ellery said finally, I need to ask you something. Anything. Why are you really doing this? I know you said you wanted to help, but you've invested your savings, your time, your energy. For what? A business that might fail? A woman you barely know? Edgar was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. Before I met you, I was sleepwalking through my life. I had clients, projects, a nice apartment, but I felt completely empty, like I was just going through the motions. Ellery turned to face him fully. Then I met this amazing woman who spilled coffee on my blueprints and somehow made me remember what it felt like to be excited about something, what it felt like to care about something more than myself. Edgar, I'm not doing this for the business, Ellery. I'm doing this for you. Because you make me want to be the kind of person who saves bookstores and takes crazy risks and believes impossible things can work out. Ellery felt tears pricking her eyes. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Really? Because I was worried it sounded desperate and clingy. She laughed through her tears. It sounded perfect. Edgar reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. So what happens now? Now we take this truck to every market, fair, and festival in the Bay Area until we've made enough money to find a permanent location. And then we build the most amazing bookstore San Francisco has ever seen. We, if you want to be my business partner, officially. Edgar kissed her softly. I want to be your everything. Officially. Edgar's apartment, 11:30 p.m. They were celebrating with takeout Chinese food and cheap wine, spread out on Edgar's living room floor with the day's earnings counted and sorted. Look at this, Ellery said, holding up a handful of business cards and email addresses. 12 people want us to cater their book clubs. 8 asked about special orders. And this woman wants to hire us for her daughter's literary-themed birthday party. We're going to need a bigger truck, Edgar said, opening another container of lo mein. Or maybe we need to think bigger. How much bigger? Ellery pulled out her laptop. What if we don't just find one permanent location? What if we create a whole network of mobile bookstores? Different neighborhoods, different specialties. Romance truck, mystery truck, children's book truck. Edgar stared at her. You want to build a book truck empire? I want to build something that makes reading accessible to everyone, everywhere. Something my dad would be proud of. Your dad is already proud of you. I hope so. This whole thing started because I was trying to save his legacy, and now it feels like we're building something completely new. Edgar's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it and frowned. What's wrong? Ellery asked. It's a text from an unknown number. Edgar read aloud. Impressive day at the fair. Too bad it won't last. Some problems can't be solved with clever permit interpretations. BC. Ellery went very still. Brad Cunningham? Seems like it. What does he mean, some problems can't be solved? Edgar's phone rang. It was Danny. Danny? What's wrong? Edgar answered, putting it on speaker. Edgar, I'm sorry to call so late, but I just got a visit from some city building inspector. He says there might be safety issues with the truck modifications I did for you. What kind of safety issues? Something about the electrical work not being up to code. I've been doing this for 15 years, Edgar. My work is always up to code. Ellery felt a chill run down her spine. Danny, did this inspector give you a name? Yeah, said his name was Johnson. Seemed legitimate, had all the right badges and paperwork. Did he say what we need to do? Complete re-inspection of all electrical systems. Could take weeks. And if anything doesn't pass, the truck gets red tagged until it's fixed. Edgar and Ellery looked at each other with growing horror. Danny, Edgar said carefully, what happens if the truck gets red tagged? You can't operate it, period. It would shut you down completely. After they hung up, Edgar and Ellery sat in stunned silence. He's not going to stop, Ellery said finally. Brad Cunningham is going to keep finding ways to shut us down until we give up. So what do we do? I don't know. Ellery's voice was small. Maybe we're in over our heads. Maybe this was a stupid idea from the beginning. Hey. Edgar moved closer to her. This afternoon you were ready to fight the world. What changed? This afternoon I thought we were just dealing with bureaucracy. Now it feels like we're fighting someone with unlimited resources and no morals. So we fight smarter. How? Edgar was quiet for a moment, then said, What if we stop playing defense and start playing offense? What do you mean? I mean, what if instead of reacting to Brad Cunningham's attacks, we figure out how to make him stop? Edgar, he's a millionaire developer. We're two people with a book truck. Yeah, but we're two people with a book truck that the entire Castro Street Fair was talking about today. We're two people who've proven that there's a market for what we're doing. And maybe it's time to show Brad Cunningham that we're not going anywhere. That trying to shut us down is going to cost him more than leaving us alone. Ellery looked at Edgar with a mixture of admiration and concern. What exactly are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Edgar said with a smile that was equal parts charming and dangerous, that we give Mr. Cunningham a taste of his own medicine. That sounds like the beginning of a very bad idea. Or, Edgar said, pulling her closer, the beginning of the best idea we've ever had. Outside, San Francisco glittered in the darkness, completely unaware that two people in a small apartment were about to declare war on one of the city's most powerful developers. And that somehow, against all odds, they might actually win. San Francisco Chronicle Building, 9 Gao a.m. 3 days later. You want to do what? Rebecca Martinez, the Chronicle's lifestyle editor, stared at Edgar and Ellery like they'd suggested robbing a bank. We want to tell our story, Ellery said, sliding a folder across the desk. Local family bookstore fights back against corporate bullying with innovative book truck business. And you think this is newsworthy because... Edgar leaned forward. Because Brad Cunningham has been systematically trying to shut down small businesses in 3 different neighborhoods. We're not his first victims, but we're the first ones fighting back publicly. Rebecca opened the folder and began reading. Inside were copies of all the suspicious inspector visits other small businesses had received, emails from vendors who'd been pressured to stop working with Cunningham's problem businesses, and a timeline showing the pattern. "How did you get all this information?" "Turns out," Ellery said with a satisfied smile, "when you spend a day at a street fair selling books, people tell you things. Lots of things. About developers who threaten their livelihoods. And you can prove Cunningham is behind this?" Edgar pulled out his phone. "Actually, we can do better than prove it. We can show it happening in real time." He played a recording of a voicemail Brad had left the night before. "Miss Matthews, this is Brad Cunningham. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I'd like to discuss a mutually beneficial arrangement. Perhaps we can find a way for your book truck to disappear quietly. Call me." Rebecca's eyebrows shot up. He actually said, "disappear quietly"? "That's not even the best part," Ellery said. "Show her the other recording, Edgar." Edgar played a second recording, this one of Brad talking to someone else, apparently unaware his call hadn't ended properly. "Just keep sending inspectors until they give up. These small business types always fold eventually. Nobody has the money to fight City Hall forever." Rebecca sat back in her chair. Wow. This is actually a real story." "So you'll write it?" Ellery asked hopefully. "I'll write it, but I'll need to verify everything independently. And you'll need to be prepared for Cunningham to come after you even harder once this goes public." Edgar and Ellery looked at each other and grinned. "Let him try," Ellery said. "We're ready." Matthews Books, 2:00 p.m. Robert Matthews was reading the Chronicle's online article for the 4th time when Edgar and Ellery walked in. "Local bookstore fights David versus Goliath, battle against developer bullying," he read aloud. "Ellery, sweetheart, you know this means war, right?" "I know, Dad. But it's a war we can win." "How can you be so sure?" Edgar pulled out his laptop. "Because look what's been happening since the article went live." The screen showed a GoFundMe page titled, "Save the Castro Street Book Truck," with a donation counter that was climbing by the minute. $12,000 in 4 hours, Edgar said. Plus, he switched to another tab showing dozens of emails. 17 food truck vendors want to organize a small business unity festival. 9 other bookstores want to order their own mobile units. And this email, he clicked on one, is from a woman who wants to hire us to cater her wedding with books instead of flowers. Books instead of flowers? Robert looked confused. Each guest gets a personally selected book as their wedding favor, Ellery explained. She said our story inspired her. Robert's phone rang. Matthew's Books. They watched his expression change from confusion to amazement to pure joy. Yes, I understand. Yes, we'd be interested. Thank you so much. He hung up and stared at them. Dad, what was that about? That was the San Francisco Public Library System. They want to hire us to run mobile book fairs at schools that don't have libraries. Are you serious? Ellery's voice went up 2 octaves. Dead serious. It's a 6-month contract with an option to extend. Enough money to hire 3 full-time employees and buy 2 more trucks. Edgar picked up Ellery and spun her around. We did it! We actually did it! Did what? Brad Cunningham's voice cut through their celebration like a knife. They turned to see him standing in the doorway, his expensive suit looking out of place among the cozy bookshelves. Mr. Cunningham, Robert said coolly, I don't believe you're welcome here. I just came to congratulate you on your little newspaper story, Brad said, his smile not reaching his eyes. Very clever, very temporary. Temporary? Ellery stepped forward. What's that supposed to mean? It means that in 6 months, when your novelty truck business falls apart and your GoFundMe money runs out, I'll still be here. And I'll still own that building where your precious bookstore used to be. And we'll still be running the most successful mobile bookstore network in California, Edgar said calmly. Brad laughed, but it sounded forced. You think this little victory means anything? I've been developing in this city for 20 years. I've seen dozens of small businesses try to fight progress. They all lose eventually. Maybe, Ellery said. But here's the thing you don't understand about bookstore people, Mr. Cunningham. We're really good at happy endings. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Edgar said, pulling out his phone again, that while you were busy making threatening voicemails, we were busy building alliances. He showed Brad a text message thread with timestamps from throughout the morning. Sarah's cousin Jake. He runs a food truck association. Danny's brother owns a construction company. Miguel's girlfriend works for the city planning department. Rebecca from the Chronicle has a sister who's a civil rights lawyer. And, Ellery added sweetly, my dad's been in business in this neighborhood for 40 years. He knows everyone. What are you getting at? Robert stepped forward. What they're getting at, Mr. Cunningham, is that you picked a fight with the wrong family. Brad's confident demeanor was starting to crack. You can't threaten me. We're not threatening you, Edgar said. We're informing you. As of this morning, 17 small businesses in the Castro district have filed formal complaints about harassment from your company. The planning department is reviewing all your permit applications, and that inspector who's been bothering our vendors, turns out he doesn't actually work for the city. Brad went very pale. You can't prove that. Actually, Ellery said, we can. Monica from the city permit office was very helpful. Apparently, impersonating a city official is a felony. You're bluffing. Are we? Robert asked mildly. Would you like to call the police and find out? For the first time since they'd met him, Brad Cunningham looked genuinely worried. Fine, he said finally. You want to play hardball? I'll demolish that building and put up the ugliest condos you've ever seen. 40 stories of glass and steel right in the middle of your precious neighborhood character. Actually, Edgar said with a grin, you won't. And why not? Because, Ellery said, pulling out a legal document. As of this morning, the Castro Street Historic Preservation Society has filed paperwork to declare this entire block a historical district. Thanks to Rebecca's article, they got over 500 signatures in 4 hours. The Historical Society application includes a provision, Edgar continued, that any building over 4 stories requires a community impact review and a 2-year approval process. Brad stared at the document like it was written in hieroglyphics. This is impossible. This is San Francisco, Robert said cheerfully. We take our neighborhoods very seriously here. But I already have investors, contracts. I can't just... Actually, Ellery said, we might have a solution that works for everyone. What solution? Edgar pulled out his laptop one more time. What if instead of luxury condos, you built mixed-use housing with small business spaces on the ground floor? Affordable units for teachers, artists, small business owners. Places where people like us could actually afford to live and work. That's not profitable enough for my investors. It is if you get city tax incentives for affordable housing development, Ellery said, which according to Monica, you would. Plus community support instead of community opposition. And, Robert added, you'd get to be the developer who saved the Castro district instead of the one who tried to destroy it. Brad looked around at the three of them, clearly calculating his options. You're serious about this? Dead serious, Edgar said. We even have an architect who could help design it. You'd help me? After everything I've done? We'd help the community, Ellery corrected. You just happen to be the person with the money to make it happen. Brad was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he started to laugh. You know what? This is crazy enough to work. He looked at Edgar. You're really an architect, licensed and everything. And you think we could make affordable housing profitable? I think we could make it beautiful and profitable. But it would mean giving up on luxury condos. Brad sighed heavily. My ex-wife always said I was too greedy for my own good. Is that a yes? Ellery asked. That's a, let me talk to my investors, see if they're interested in being the good guys for once. After Brad left, the three of them stood in stunned silence. "Did we just convince our arch-nemesis to become our business partner?" Ellery asked. "I think we did," Edgar replied. "Your mother would have loved this," Robert told Ellery, wiping his eyes. "She always said the best way to defeat an enemy is to turn them into a friend." 1 year later, grand opening of Castro Commons. The mixed-use development was beautiful. 4 stories of modern apartments with ground-floor retail space, designed around a central courtyard with community gardens and reading nooks. Matthews Books occupied the largest retail space, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a coffee bar run by Danny's daughter. The book truck was parked permanently in the courtyard, now serving as a children's reading corner. Edgar and Ellery stood on the second-floor balcony of their shared apartment, watching the grand opening celebration below. "I can't believe it's been a year," Ellery said, leaning against Edgar's chest. "I can't believe we pulled it off." "We had help." Ellery pointed to the courtyard below, where Robert was giving tours to visitors. Sarah and Tyler, now back together, were managing the book truck. Miguel was driving families around in a decorated golf cart, and Brad Cunningham was actually smiling while talking to reporters. "Speaking of help," Edgar said, pulling a small box from his pocket, "I was hoping you might help me with something else." Ellery turned around to find Edgar on one knee. "Ellery Matthews," he said, opening the box to reveal a vintage ring with a small diamond surrounded by tiny books carved in gold. "Will you marry me? And more importantly, will you let me be your business partner for life?" Ellery's eyes filled with tears. "Edgar Chen, that's the most romantic and practical proposal I've ever heard. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes to everything. Marriage, business partnership, and whatever crazy adventure you want to drag me into next." Edgar slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her as the celebration continued below them. "I love you," he whispered. "I love you too. But I have one condition." "Anything." "We're having a book-themed wedding, no exceptions." Edgar laughed. "I wouldn't want it any other way." Down in the courtyard, Robert looked up and saw them kissing on the balcony. He raised his coffee cup in a toast and called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. "To the power of books, the magic of love, and the triumph of happy endings." The crowd cheered, and somewhere in San Francisco, another impossible love story found its perfect conclusion. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Castro Street Book Truck Network now operated 12 vehicles across the Bay Area. Edgar's architectural firm specialized in community-focused development. Brad Cunningham had become an unlikely advocate for affordable housing and a surprisingly good friend. And every morning, Edgar and Ellery still started their day at the same Starbucks where they'd met, drinking coffee and planning their next impossible dream. Some love stories begin with coffee spills. The best ones never really end. The end